Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I am going to talk about what my experience in treatment and rehab was like, and how I felt during it, what was going through my mind, the turning points, the points at which I wanted to leave very early. Which the reason why was actually pretty decent, but it ended up becoming the very first and most important lesson that I learned while I was in rehab. And so if you haven't seen the how I got addicted to fentanyl video, it'll be right here. The what it's like to detox from fentanyl video will be right here. What I learned in treatment, the 5 most important lessons I learned will be right here. And then a little bit about my childhood, my relationship with my father will be down there. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just, the videos, there'll be links in the screen for you to click if you haven't seen any of that. And so, for those who watched the detox video, I spent some time in the hospital. I called the ambulance on myself. While I was there, I was introduced to my mom's friend, who is the director of operations at a rehab called Reward Path Recovery in Santa Paula, California. I got the call from her. All she said was, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes." And the next morning, she drove 8 hours from Ventura County to Lake Havasu Regional Medical Center to come pick my dumb ass up. So, a big part of why I didn't seek out treatment before I basically had to was because I was very scared that if I admitted to what I was doing and told people such as like my employers or like my union or, that the reason I needed time off was because I was addicted to drugs and I needed to get clean. I thought that it would be something I'd lose my career over, something that would damage my life. And it turned out that was really just more rationalization, justification as to why I should continue to use, because it just wasn't the right time. But turns out I was fucking wrong, because everybody I had to call and talk to and tell them I was, getting ready to go to rehab because I was addicted to drugs and needed to get clean was nothing but absolutely supportive and helpful. The union immediately put me on a 6-month leave of absence, and I had absolutely zero issues with them, which was the most important part. Every loved one I called, even the ones that didn't know what was going on, were, some shocked, but for the most part, very happy that this was what I was going to be doing. Some of them thought I was going to die getting loaded. They had every right to feel that way. And so my first day, I rode to the rehab with the director of operations, and we had, many conversations. I signed my life away, basically, and the most expensive contract I've ever signed in my life. It said that basically they could charge up to like $5,000 a day. They didn't end up doing that, but expensive getting clean. So we get to the treatment center, and all I have, my mom follows in my car because I was not able to drive, and my mom followed us all the way there, which was further than she had to go, but she wanted to make sure I was okay. Love you, Mom. So they had me get whatever I was going to keep, right? I got my clothes. I had a duffel bag of shit that I had from Lake Havasu. And some shoes. I brought my work boots. My work boots were always in my car just in case. And I don't know why I felt compelled to grab them, but I did. And I figured out why later. And they found about a whole fucking roll of aluminum foil just balled up into burnt little fucking squares, basically, which is what I would smoke off of. And got rid of all that shit. And so I got, admitted in and did it was supposed to be a 7-day detox, but I had already been detoxing, so they didn't really follow all the way through with that, which was fine because I, as more days went on while I was in there, I felt a lot better. The first real lesson that I learned was that things are always going to happen when they need to happen. Even if you don't feel like it needed to happen, even if it doesn't seem good, seems like this should never happen. Things happen because when they're supposed to, and because they're supposed to, and because they're supposed to teach us things. And so on my third morning that I was there, I had to check my phone to I also had to set up my disability and stuff. And I had a text from my friend that said, "Hey, you should call your mom. Your car got stolen from her." And I was like, is he really fucking with me right now? Like, is this a joke? Like, why the fuck would you even say that while I'm fucking here in rehab? Like, I just got here. And now, if this is true, all I'm going to want to do is go and try and solve this. Call a few more people. They, confirm what Mark was saying was true. Call my mom. She's in tears, just absolutely crying her eyes out. I didn't trust leaving my car with her, not because of her, because of where she lived, which was in a dump hotel in Pomona. And none of my friends were available or able to come and take my car when I went to treatment. Everything happened so fast, last minute. There was no real planning, And so the car had to go with my mom. So it got stolen from the parking lot. It was a Hyundai Sonata, so it was a victim of that stupid, Kia Boys freaking shit. And so the car got stolen. And right when I found that out, my first instinct was, I'm leaving. I got to go. That car is my most important tool in my life. Most important thing I own is that car. And I only had it for under a year. It was the first car I financed. I was very proud of that car. And, I was really, really bothered. And so I had a therapy session scheduled for that morning. And it was a little later in the morning it was supposed to happen, but because of what was going on, and I was getting ready to leave, and the lady who brought me into the rehab was like, you could leave, but what are you really going to do about it? You're going to fucking try and get on a bus, spend $100, $200 on an Uber to fucking go and hunt some guy down with you don't have a car. He has your car. How are you going to get around? How do you even know where to look? And I'm one person who can't really argue with logic. And she made a lot of sense. And so I said, okay, well, I'll have my therapy session. And in the therapy session, the main message was like, we can't control everything. And especially people like us addicts tend to want to control everything. And so the therapist kind of helped me get into a good mindset about the car being stolen. She was like, you have insurance, right? And I was like, yeah, full coverage. She was like, well, what's the worst that can happen then? Even if the car never gets found, you're file an insurance claim and they're going to pay the car off, and then you'll have to buy a new car. You might even find a nicer car, something else you like. And that kind of made me feel better. And so I was able to take my mind off of that, the thing I couldn't control, which was my car being stolen. And I, at that point, relinquished control. I said, okay, you're right. There's nothing I can do about this. All I can do is wait for more information and then respond to that information when it comes. That's all we can ever do. And I never really lived like that before. Well, 10 minutes later, after this thought comes into my head, there's a knock on the door, and it's the owner, who's also a doctor of this rehab. And he said, hey, you mind if I interrupt? And I was like, doctor, they stole my car, man. Fuck, dude. And I was upset. And all he said was, well, that's why I'm knocking. They just found it and everything's fine. And there was this overwhelming sense of relief and peace that came over me. And there was such a powerful feeling experience. It was the first real distress I'd ever gone through clean as an adult. And it was the first real time I had to actually relinquish control, because even when I wasn't in control, I would always felt or try my hardest to be in control. And in that moment, I relinquished control, and my car ended up being okay, the way it was supposed to be. And so that taught me that we can't control everything. And so from that point on, I went from questioning whether I was even wanting to be there, to completely being signed on to the fact that like there was nowhere else in the world I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be exactly where I was. And that's a feeling I've also never felt before. There's never been a time in my life where, before that, where I felt I was exactly where I needed to be. And that was the first time, was in treatment. That was such a incredibly powerful like experience to have, because it totally allowed me to open my mind and become willing and and desire to do whatever it was I needed to do to make this experience the most powerful it could be. Treatment, I mean, and I dove right in. I'd never been to like an AA or an NA meeting. Went to my first meeting. Absolutely loved it. The first person I heard speak kind of told the story similar to like what I'd been through in my childhood. And there was just a lot of mirroring. Like I was able to understand him. And by what he was saying, I already knew that he understood me. And it was just crazy because I was like, oh, wow, that's wild. Like, I never thought that would happen. And then the next guy talked. And same thing. Like, not the same story, but a whole bunch of things that I could understand. And a whole bunch of things he said that made me know that he understood me. And as I heard more and more people talk and went to more and more meetings, I realized that all of us, we're all unique and different, but we're also all the same. There's always something that drives us to do what we do, and there's always a way that we can tell ourselves that what we're doing is okay. And a lot of the times we don't change that until we literally hit rock bottom, because we allow these things to remain in such powerful control. And so at that point, I fell in love with meetings. Always wanted to go to meetings. Went to a bunch while I was in treatment, still to go to meetings. And I started getting assignments from the rehab. The first assignment was a goodbye letter to drugs and alcohol. And that letter ended up being like 21 pages. And maybe I'll read that one day. I have all that stuff right here. This is my rehab notebook. It stays very close to me at all times because there's a lot that this notebook allowed me to learn about myself. And it's incredible because there are so many things that we just naturally repress, that we try our hardest to not remember. And these assignments are designed in a way that we remember them, because a lot of these things that we repress are the root cause of what we're going through. And so the way they would do assignments is you would, write your assignment out, and then there would be a day where you would go and present in front of everybody. The other people staying there, the staff, who are all, recovering addicts and stuff. And when I presented my story, I got, and everybody gets a standing ovation, but the doctor came to me and told me that it was some of the most powerful writing he'd ever heard from anybody. And that was the first instance when I was in rehab where I felt truly proud. I was proud of the work I had done and proud that I was where I was, because not very long before that, I never thought that being in treatment was something that I was going to do. I resigned to the idea that I couldn't go to rehab because it would take too much time out of my life, and that I would have to somehow figure out how to get clean without treatment, and that was never going to fucking happen. And so I started meeting more people. I had a guy that also came into the treatment, and he was in full-blown meth psychosis. And I tried my best to talk to him, and as days gone on, he kind of lightened up a little bit, and I made him laugh for the first time in like 2 weeks. And that was the moment at which me and him became really good friends. And we would start doing our assignments together, helping each other. When we weren't feeling good, we would talk to each other and do what we could to be there for each other. And he started actually taking his assignments seriously. And so like to know that like my story and like my ethic and like the things I'm doing could inspire somebody else to like do the work they needed to do, and put in the time and effort into their recovery. Because when he first got there, he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't able to. He didn't feel like it. Even when he kind of was breaking out of the psychosis, he felt like everybody was against him, and he wasn't sure. And he heard one of my presentations on the letter I wrote to my father, which was like a 17-page letter. And this was the moment that this was why I brought my work boots, because I realized that what I was doing when I'm doing all these assignments and presenting and like, doing these lessons is I'm working. I'm putting in work to become a better version of myself. And so I started with that letter to my father. I started wearing my work boots and getting dressed up. I had a nice button-up shirt. I would brush my hair, brush my teeth. I would get ready. And so before this letter, I had a really powerful experience. I had decided, that I was going to get ready like as if I was going to work, and I wanted to be as properly prepared as possible. And I was rereading this letter over and over again, and I was completely focused on that. And then I walked upstairs, and I noticed that my laundry needed to be done. So I just, without hesitation, dealt with that. As I was walking out of out of my bedroom, the rehab bedroom, to go to the laundry room, I happened to notice that the pin in the door, the top hinge of the door, was sticking all the way out, and my door was making a lot of noise when I'd open and shut it. So I stuck my foot under there, pried up a little bit, knocked the pin in. And when that pin knocked in, it all clicked. That was presence. That was awareness. I had just learned how to be present and how to be aware by happenstance. And I had fully immersed myself so much into the idea that I wanted this presentation to be as powerful and as meaningful as possible, not to everybody else, but to myself. And so I subconsciously wasn't allowing any other thoughts or anything that, would normally bug me about my past or like worrying about the future. None of those thoughts were there. It was just presence. And seeing the pin and putting that back in, I felt like that only happened because I was completely immersed into the moment I was in. I was completely present. And that pin, putting that pin in to relieve the pressure from the top of the door, like relieved a lot of pressure for me, because I felt like I had just learned the importance of why we're supposed to be present and aware of what is going on in our current lives at the moment, right now, in this moment. And I had to stop for a second, and I started crying, and I walked outside, and everything looked just a little bit different. Like everything. The trees, the fucking plants that were out there, the fence, all of it, it just looked a little bit different. It looked a little more clear. It looked a little more vivid. It looked a little more detailed. And I think it was just because I was allowing myself to see more detail. I wasn't allowing myself to distract myself from what was right in front of me. And that was, I think, the biggest turning point. And from that point on, I had my presentation. I broke down like a baby while I was having it, but it was everything I hoped it would be. And through that whole thing, I found that I actually did forgive my father. And if you had asked me just a week before that, I had no love, no care, no fucking respect. Well, I was hoping he would rot in hell, and I was pissed off at him still for fucking making my life the way it was. When really, once I hit a certain age, I was completely responsible for my damn life. And that was another realization that made me forgive him. But it also made me forgive myself. Because we can't do anything about what already happened. All we can do is what we can do about right now. And that became my main focus from that point on, was how do we make today the best we possibly can? How do we put all of our effort and energy and everything into today? That was what became my goal. And then I started trying to cognitively keep myself in presence. And I would do all kinds of stuff. I would, like, if something was just running through my mind, I would completely stop. I still do this to this day. I would stop and I just observe everything around me, like physically, like visually, the details and everything, like this camera, looking directly at this camera, noticing how it has these ridges on the side, noticing how there's 3 circles, an outer ring, inner ring, and listening to the sounds that were currently happening. Like taking the time to stop, pause, and just immerse yourself into what your surroundings are and what you're seeing is such a great way I've found to bring yourself back to presence. Another thing I started doing was listening to music. I would put music in my ears if I was finding that I was wandering, and I would sing to myself, because now I'm using muscles and senses and stuff to relate what I'm hearing to what's coming out of my mouth, and it's essentially distracting me from what I don't need to be thinking about, which is things that have already happened that I can't change, which is where I spend a lot of my thinking time. I used to, at least. And so that became like another one of my big goals, was finding methods to bring myself back to earth, essentially bring myself to presence and not be distracted by what might be one day or what was before. Because the best way that we can make the next day the best it can possibly be is by making today the best it possibly can be. Doing your best today is how tomorrow becomes great. And so from that point on, it was mostly trying to set myself up for success after rehab. That became my biggest worry, right? I know it's a future thought, but what is life going to be like when I don't have any of this structure? Because all this structure was stuff I'd never had before to begin with. I'd never had this structure in my real life. And I started making my bed every day. I started making sure all my laundry was done every day. I started doing everything I could to make sure everything I could have done and every goal I could accomplish, be it small or whatever, would be done and would be accomplished. Because I felt like it was important to set up a good precedent for what a daily schedule would look like in real life. The food was great. We had a chef that was on site, made food fresh 3 times a day. The people that were working there were absolutely lovely and helpful, wonderful people. The lengths that they would go to, that they went to try and make sure I was good. They gave me an extra 2 weeks. I was supposed to be there 30 days. They ended up extending my stay another 15 days free of charge, and then another 15 days after that. And the reason they gave me was because, like, it wasn't only helping me, but I guess the work I was doing was really helping the 2 other people that were staying there do more work and try harder. And so about 2 weeks before I was getting ready to get out, they let me out for a weekend to go take care of some things that I had to take care of and go get my car from my mom because it almost got stolen again. And there was trust that got built there with that. So I went drug test before I left, came back, drug test right when I got back, staring at my dick, everything. And, you know, I didn't fail them. And yeah, so the last 2 weeks was really just preparing. So setting up where I was going to go for outpatient, setting up where I was going to live, and building a daily schedule for myself that I would follow until I went back to work, which I would then build another daily schedule for myself. The structure that I learned in there has been one of the most valuable things that I could have ever learned in my life, because now I structure my days to where there's really not much time for me to fuck around if I wanted to even, but the presence that I was able to learn while I was in there is something I use on a minute by minute basis now. When something happens that I don't like or that would upset me, I literally stop completely, like I would do in there, and I don't do anything until, you know, I come up with a response. You know what I mean? I learned how to not react in treatment, which is so like absolutely massive. And it was hard, but very quickly on, it became easy to want to stay there. And towards the end, I actually was scared. I didn't feel like I was ready to leave, but if I wasn't ready then, I was never going to be ready. So what ended up happening is my cousin / best friend told me I could come live with him. He wrote up a contract that I would go to 4 meetings a week, and obviously if I got loaded, I'd get kicked out. And so when I got out, that's where I went. I went straight there. I had a doctor's appointment. When I got out, I was also on medications they put me on. So they put me, after the Suboxone taper, they put me on trazodone for sleeping, gabapentin for like pain and stuff, and naloxone, which is an opioid blocker, and something else, Prozac. And I wasn't, when I stopped using, my biggest goal was I don't want anything. I don't want to use any medications, but they wouldn't let me not do that. And so when I got out, I had a doctor's appointment. Like the minute I got out, basically, I had to go to this doctor, and he basically gave me like a new prescription for all these meds, and then I went home to where I was moving. I took the meds for maybe a week. I just didn't like how they made me feel. Like, I felt like the Prozac was making it to where, yeah, I wouldn't feel as bad when bad came up, but I also wouldn't feel good. I just kind of felt there, like I was existing. And so I stopped taking that pretty quick. Didn't really take the gabapentin. The trazodone, if I did take it to go to sleep, it makes waking up so incredibly difficult for me. But without it, I couldn't sleep at all almost. And so I just stopped taking it. I decided I was just going to try and learn how to sleep naturally again, which I still struggle with. I mean, it's been over 2 years, and I still sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours a night. But that's enough. I feel good with that, and I'm not worried about it. And I stopped the naloxone the minute I got out of treatment, because it is absolutely terrible for your liver. And if I need something to fucking physically make me not able to use fucking opiates, then obviously there's a lot more work that I needed to do. And there is always more work that I need to do, and I'm still doing it, and I will forever be doing it. But I felt like I needed to be able to be clean without needing something to be clean, because that was the whole reason I ever wasn't clean, was because I needed something to not feel. And so I didn't feel like I should do the same thing in terms of not using it anymore, is need something so that I won't get high. I should just not want to get high. And if I do want to get high, obviously there's a lot of work that I need to do in order to not want to get high. And I can gladly say that today, I'm still clean. I have no desire to use whatsoever. thinking about that withdrawal and detox shit that I went through. Like, that's a huge factor in why I don't want to use. But yeah, this was my experience in rehab. I hope that you guys found this useful. Anybody who's considering rehab, all I will say is it's only as powerful and as helpful of an experience as you yourself allow it to be. You have to be the one to do the work. You have to be the one to be willing and allow yourself to be vulnerable and feel, because that's what they're teaching you how to do, is to feel again. Because what we've done this whole time before was supplant ourselves with things that were meant to make us not feel. And so rehab is one of the things that rehab is a way for us to learn how to feel again, and for us to learn how to properly deal with those feelings. I still go to therapy like twice a week. Once a week. I still go to meetings. I'm working out of town right now. Right now I'm home, but so that's actually been pretty interesting. So getting to see what meetings are like in different places. But if you are in a position where you think you might need to go to treatment, or you might want to, do it. Don't hold yourself back from making the best decision you could ever make in your life and becoming the best version of yourself that you could ever be. I think that the things that we learn in rehab and in treatment are things that anybody could learn, and it would be useful to anybody in this world. But I hope you guys found something useful out of this. I know I kind of am long-winded and ramble a little bit, and I don't even know if I made it to where a lot of you guys would understand what I'm saying, but I've been wanting to share this experience with you guys, and I've had a couple people ask for what it was like. And yeah, that was my experience with rehab. I hope you all have a lovely day. Thank you very much for watching.